Look around 10.
Okay, welcome to Firefighting Today. This is the weekly Roundtable show where we meet every Sunday evening to talk about all things fire service related. Tonight we are actually speaking, we're going to have a product demonstration, so that's kind of new for us here. We've never ventured into that arena, so we are going to have a product demonstration tonight called HYDROVENT. We've got a couple of new roundtablers with us. One of them is our presenter tonight. So before we get into the full disclaimers and all of that sort of stuff, let's do a quick introduction to the panel. My name is Peter Lamb. I'm the author of PeteLamb.com, and I am the host of the Firefighter Training Podcast. I serve as the host here also on Sunday evenings. Warren, say hello. Quick intro.
Hi, Warren Whitley, retired Assistant Chief from Prince William County, Virginia.
Thanks, Warren. Always a pleasure. New roundtabler, Rahul, say hello. Quick introduction for the viewers.
Hey, I'm Raul Angulo. I'm a captain with 6 Seattle Fire, and I write for Fire Apparatus magazine, and I've had numerous articles in fire engineering.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for taking some time to be with us. I appreciate it. And our presenter tonight, Kevin, just say hello. Introduce yourself to the viewers.
Hi, good afternoon. Kevin O'Donnell, co-inventor of HYDROVENT. My father was the original, and he's since passed away, and I'm running with it these days.
All right, great, great. Greg, say hello.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Greg Howard. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief for the Dashwood Volunteer Fire Department on Vancouver Island.
Thank you, Greg. Always a pleasure. John, say hello. I'd love to have you back. Thanks.
Thank you for having me back. Lieutenant John Haywick, City of Passaic Fire Department in New Jersey. Been around the fire service about 23 years right now, and always constant learning. Student of the trade, to steal a couple of the guys' thunder and taglines.
Right, absolutely. And Adam, last but certainly not least.
Good evening. Adam Ganaway, a captain for the Kellogg Volunteer Fire Department here in Kellogg, Iowa, right here in the Midwest.
All right, good stuff. All right, folks, so here's what we're going to do. We got a couple of folks on YouTube watching us right now. We got some folks coming in. If you are on YouTube and you have questions for our presenter or questions about HYDROVENT as we get going, please feel free to submit those as a YouTube comment. If you leave a YouTube comment, we can bring your discussion right into the panel discussion, and we'll be happy to answer that. So we have never done a product review here on the panel. We are not, we don't have an opinion. Kevin reached out to me. I want to hear about the product. I don't know anything about the product. So we're kind of just taking a look, and it's my way to present information to you. So this is great that we have the person who invented the product with us. So without further ado, Kevin, why don't you get started? Give us a quick background, and then you've got a presentation to give us so we can walk through those slides. So why don't you just take it away, Kevin?
Okay, again, Kevin O'Donnell, HYDROVENT. A little bit about my father before I get started on myself. My father started back in the 50s, city of Chicago, west side. Busy companies his whole career, 40 plus years on the city. Since retired, and no air packs or anything basically his whole career, rubber three-quarter boots and rubber coats, and since passed away of lung issues, believe it or not. Great guy, and came up with the concept a long time ago. I'll tell you the story in a couple minutes. Myself, I'm 27 years in the fire service. I've got a couple years. I'm just outside the city of Chicago. I actually turned down the city because I had about 7 years on outside the city when they called me. I started out volunteer, went to Franklin Park, which is basically right next to O'Hare Airport, for a few years. They had living restrictions and the area was going downhill, and then I went to Hoffman Estates. I've been there 25 plus years. I'm lieutenant there, engine company, head of TRT, the technical rescue team, and studying the fire service every day like all of us here.
Right.
Just watching and learning. I also teach outside at multiple academies and a bunch of stuff too, and burn with HYDROVENT every chance I get. Hopefully making the product better as we go.
So tell me, Kevin, if your father started in the 50s, the lack of air packs and techniques and tactics at the time certainly probably led to this discussion, I assume, right?
Oh, absolutely. He was just a little background on the story of how the tool came about. We were talking one day, and he said, "Hey, I got this idea. Why don't you play with me a little bit, and we'll get this idea going, and we'll get it up and running." And I said, "Well, what's the idea?" And he basically told me the story, and the story was back in the 60s, right about when I was born. He's laying on the floor, venting out a small window, breathing off the nozzle, and you get that turbulence right at the nozzle, that air breakup with the fog nozzle. He's venting out a small window. He's listening to the guys behind him, and they're saying, "Hey, we got it, we're making headway, we're making headway." Well, they can see what they're doing. He's pulling the heat and smoke off them, and they're all in there fighting the fire, and they're not taking a beating because they're laying on the floor, and they can actually kind of see what they're doing. So he sets down the nozzle, sees a bigger window, breaks out the bigger window. As he's breaking that window out, takes him a few seconds rather, and starts to pick up the nozzle. And he's listening to the guys behind him again. They're saying, "Shit, we're losing it, we're losing it, we're losing it." Well, as soon as he put down the nozzle, stopped ventilating. The guys are taking a bath from the steam and the smoke, and all that stuff is coming back down on them. They can't see what they're doing. They're starting to have a hard time breathing. They think they're losing it. He opens it up again and says, "All right, hang in there, boys. We got it, we got it." A light bulb went off in his head. Fast forward to the mid to late 80s. I get on the job. I get out of the academy. Dad comes up to me and says, "Hey, I got this idea." The idea basically says is hydraulic ventilation. How do we do this? How do we get it done from the outside? How do we do it unmanned? We started out with a whole bunch of different things, but before we got too far, he came up to me and he basically said, "Hey, what do you think of the idea?" So I'm out of the academy. It's the late 80s. They're saying PPV is the way to go. I'm 19 years old. I stopped my dad, mid-sentence because I'm 19 and basically I know everything. He's been fighting 3 fires a day in the city, for almost 40 years at that point. And I'm telling him how to fight fires, and PPV is the way to go. I'm not anti-PPV. It's just a good story. So he goes, "Just humor me, kid. I got this idea. Let's play with it. Maybe we can help some guys out in the fire service." So fast forward, I said, "All right, we will." And fast forward probably 100 different variations to get it to look basically kind of like this. It's a shepherd's hook. It's 8 feet long. Has a fog nozzle facing out. 4 straight streams equal about 95 gallons in and off the ceiling. So you've got suppression with ventilation. When we started, we just did ventilation. To get to this curve, this setback, this rake, the glass breaker, to get all that stuff was hundreds of variations to get it to work. The reason it's set up like it is because it will fit first floor, second floor, roof cuts, wherever you want to put it. So I'm laying in a fire in northern Wisconsin, and we had to beg and borrow and plead with guys to get into fires to show our tool, because people understood hydraulic ventilation, but nobody understood how you're doing it from the outside and if it would work. So we've been doing this for probably 20-something years, trying to beg and go up to chiefs and plead with them to get into fires. So I'm laying in there with an old Super 8 camera. I'm laying on the floor, a whole bunch of pallets and stuff in the room, and I'm right at the door of the room, and it's getting hot. So hot that the Super 8 camera snapped, shut right off from the heat sensor inside of it. I'm on my belly starting to do that crawl back out of the room. My dad's on the outside, throws it in the window. There's no suppression going on. The nozzle's right behind me with the 3 or 4 guys. He turns it on, just ventilation only. Lifts the heat and smoke off the floor, takes that smoke, starts to roll it out, and you could actually see the flames start to tilt towards the window. Temperature drop was immediate in the room, at least a couple of 100 degrees within a minute or so. You could feel it. And then after it was going for a little while, basically you had dry air going across the fire. Yes, the fire's starting to get a little bigger, and the guys behind them would knock it down. They just wanted to see what it would do. But man, when they hit it, that steam would start to roll in the room. You'd think it'd start to push back out on the guys, because they brought the hose in the front door. You open up the front door, usually that steam will come right over you. Basically it goes up, sucks out, Fire's knocked down a little bit. They hit it again. Steam goes down in the room. Boom, it lifts up. Hydraulic ventilation sucks it out. We did that for about 10 years or so. Grandfather got sick. He lived with us. Dad got sick right after that. Long-term illness with lungs and cancer and all that. The idea went away. I had a young family, trying to raise 4 kids, trying to do everything that we're all doing out there, and teach and do everything else we could. And then now I'm a little bit older. Kids are starting to do their own thing, and I have more time. I've been doing it constantly ever since, but it's been probably 6 months on the market. We just got it out there, and now if you look at the Hit It Hard from the Yard, the NIST studies, the UL studies, they're saying coordinated attack, ventilation with suppression. You take this thing, you slam it in the window. Once you slam it in the windowsill, the hook holds it. Once you charge it, back pressure pushes it in the window. Fog stream out, hydraulic ventilation. Straight streams in and off the ceiling in multiple patterns. You think about what you're doing, and I'll show you in just a little bit. And then this cap goes on, you shut it off, cap goes on, and basically it goes on for overhaul. So once you put it on there, you can turn it off, put this on, and then you have ventilation only for overhaul, because if it's 20 below zero up in Vancouver or out in Seattle, you don't want to be getting soaked. You'll be calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning, MFing me that you're got 95 gallons a minute spraying back in on you when you're doing overhaul. So basically, that's what the tool, we developed it and developed it, and we're still making the tool better every time we go out and burn. We went to FDIC 2 years ago as our first rollout. Since then, I had a nozzle on, I had a cap on here that 3 holes on the top. You would turn it on and turn it off. I thought that was almost a foolproof idea, and you'd crank it and have a stop on it, and then you really have to crank on it to get it back the other way. Well, I went down to Nashville. I had a bunch of sales, and I was looking for vendors all over the world. Well, unbeknownst to me, my partner was selling to people, and that wasn't my goal first FDIC. I'm one guy. I wanted to get salespeople out there working with me, So I went to Tennessee. I went to Chattanooga. I whacked that thing off of the windowsill, and I cracked it and partially turned it off. We called all the sales that we had. We took it off the market, and we redesigned it. Then we had to go find a new place to vet it. We had to get it into multiple fires, make sure that it worked, and we always test it under fire load just to make sure that it worked, and it worked well. I wanted to make it almost fireman-proof. I know that it's very hard to do. People say fireman-proof, and it's almost impossible. So we came up with this idea. Cap. Nozzle won't shut off here. You can use it straight stream to wide fog. If you have it at wide fog, it's basically going to come right off of here. So if you think about your wall is here, your window is right here, that fog stream will come right to here. So for your wide openings, you want a little bit narrower, dial in your fog pattern and throw it in your window. Once you do that, you have suppression going up off the ceiling. So once that suppression starts hitting the ceiling, you have that rollover gets taken out of the equation, because it hits that rollover, that superheated atmosphere, and boom, within seconds, that rollover is not traveling anymore from the fire room. It's getting knocked out. Once it gets knocked out, you've got a lot of steam conversion and everything, and that steam and that heat gets pulled out by the fog nozzle itself. We also, because we're firemen and we can't leave well enough alone, basically we developed a bunch of other stuff to go with the tool. We couldn't leave you with just a hydraulic ventilation suppression tool. We wanted to make it very usable. So basically what we came up with is this piece, which is about 4 feet long. We have another piece, which is about 4 feet long, 1.5-inch pistol grip shutoff on the end of it. You can take this piece right here, you can break it in half. These two pieces go together, so the tool is actually about 8 feet long when it's all said and done. First floor windows, you lay it in at an angle, pop it in, and your window, will be, how do we do that? Windows like this, and then your angle will be here, so it hold the nozzle out into the center of the window, basically on a first floor window. Second floor, it's going to hang straight up and down. Third floor, roof cuts, Works very well. Some of the other stuff we did, because we couldn't leave well enough alone, is we developed this cap. We thought that was a great, safe idea. It's meant to leak for cold weather environments, so that if you are 20 below zero and you throw this cap on, it's going to get a little spritz around the outside, because if you didn't, if that tolerance was so tight, it would basically bust this cap right off the end of it if it froze solid on there. So we didn't want that to happen. The other thing we gave you is that 1.5 inch shutoff. That gives you some flexibility. So basically, I can show you what that does really quickly here, and I've got some other stuff in there. 1.5 inch shutoff, you're going to get 250 gallons a minute roughly out of here. You're not going to get a very good stream. You're not going to get a lot of punch. The other thing that we threw in the kit is this. This is our design. It's called the slug tip. It's about 2.5 inches long. Goes from 1.5 inches to a 1 inch orifice. And we've got videos on all this stuff online to show you what it does. Throw this right on there very quickly. Once you throw it on there, you're going about 200 gallons a minute at 50 psi, a little over, and you're going to get about 100 feet out of punch just by throwing that little nozzle on there. The other thing that we did is we developed our own piercing nozzle. Now, it's not a true piercing nozzle in the fact that you can't take a sledgehammer to it and bash it through a wall. But what we did do is give you, and if you can see how long it is, about 40 inches of reach with this pipe. And this, everything is interchangeable. So the fog nozzle, the piercing nozzle, the slug tip, anything can be used anywhere on the tool. It's all 1.5 inch hose coupling. So it's very fireman friendly. The slug tip itself, again, it's not a true, I'm sorry, the piercing nozzle. The piercing nozzle itself, again, is not a true piercing nozzle in the fact that you can't take a sledgehammer to it. But we figured any fireman worth his salt is bringing tools to the front door. There's usually tools somewhere right there. You can bust a hole big enough, and this will go through drywall, anything light, no problem at all. It'll go up into an attic, and this will give you about 250 gallons a minute in a 360-degree pattern with very little nozzle reaction. You can take your fingers and basically just control this, and all it is just the weight of the hose. There's no nozzle reaction behind this. So this will darken down anything you need to do. We've used it car fires, semi-fires, the plastic wheel wells, hay bales, attic fires, basically anything you can poke a hole in and jam this into, you can set it in there. You can even let it hang, and it gives you that reach. Some guys out of the city I was talking to recently, they said they're going to use it on high-rise fires. They said it'd be perfect if you can't make that apartment in a high-rise, but you can make the apartment next door. They used to knock a hole and jam the nozzle through there, where they're getting their knuckles right up in the wall there with a possibly a wind-driven fire in that other apartment. It'd come out like a blowtorch on them. They can use this, jam it in there, charge it, knock down the room, the majority of it, and then make their way around and go in. That's just another thing we came up with, one of our own designs, and this can go on pretty much anywhere. Again, we had to vet all this stuff, and that process has been long and tedious, because you look at me, I'm not the smartest looking guy in the whole world probably, and I show up at one of your burns, and I've called you in the past, and I say, hey, I got this hydraulic ventilation and suppression tool. You mind if I show up and come train with you guys? I'd like to show you what it does, and I'd like to get some video. And I tell the chiefs that, and I show up with this 8-foot long shepherd's hook, and they go, I got 25 guys to get through here. We'll see if we got a fire for you. So I spent a lot of days waiting to get into a fire. Once I do get into a fire, I say it's going to knock down your fire load in the room, or at least keep it in check depending on how much fire load you have there. And then it's going to pull the heat and smoke out of the fire room itself. So I get in there, I do my thing. Usually it's pallets and straw, or sometimes eventually they throw a couch or something in there with nobody inside there. And they say, all right, let's see what it does. I throw it in there. It knocks the pallets and straw down to, the nothing very quickly, and drops the temperatures in that room, basically so you could walk to the door of the room with your, with civilian clothes on and no air pack in a matter of 2 minutes. And the chiefs all over the years have said, hey, that really works great, but I got 25 guys to get in here, and they all want to see heat and smoke, but, thanks for coming, appreciate it. So it's been a really long process to try and get this going. We've since come across the cans, And the cans that we came across were designed by UL. They are the best we can do to get real plastic combustion in. I'll show you all the pictures, and there's plenty of videos online on them. The cans we can throw a full-size couch, 4 pieces of OSB, 4 pallets every time. That gives us, basically a small room and contents, same fire load, same. We can recreate it over and over and over again. And I'll show you the whole system once we get rocking here. You've got a window on one side, door on the other side, another door, and then an L-shaped container. So you have the fire room itself, and then basically kind of the rest of the house. You can get thermals in there, cameras, all kinds of other stuff, just to see exactly what's going on. My wife's peeking her head around the corner there, making me nervous. So.
All right, why don't we hold right there for 1 second, Kevin. Again, folks that are viewing on YouTube, we're going to get started into the presentation here shortly. If you have a comment or a question for Kevin or members of the panel on this, feel free to submit that comment. Just leave a YouTube comment, and we'll drag it right into the discussion. So, Kevin, go ahead. We're about 20 minutes in, so why don't we get into the presentation?
Sure. Throughout this whole thing, before I get started, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our company. Our company is myself and a few other guys. We're all firemen. We're all active on the job. We're all full-time guys. It's made by firemen. It's designed by firemen. It's sold by firemen. It's written about by firemen. The word is spread by firemen. That's our goal. And now we're getting a sales force out there. The companies that we are looking for are retired firemen, active firemen. Those are the guys that we are looking for to sell our product. And we've got a bunch of them out there. So that's just a little bit about us. So let me show you. We'll get into the slide presentation here, and I'm hoping it works because I'm not a very computer literate person. So here we go. How are we looking there?
It says HYDROVENT US.
Beautiful. That's our company logo. That's our phone number right there. Rings right to my hip. It's the only one we got. So if you need me, that's the one it is. This is basically a picture of everything that we have in the HYDROVENT. If you look up here, can you see my cursor in the?
We can, yes.
Yes. If you look up here, this is the old nozzle that we had. We're all about firefighter safety. We had a bunch sold. My wife, I spent a lot of money developing this with patents and all kinds of other stuff, and my wife about wanted to kill me when I took this off the shelf for basically 6 months to redo this and revet it. But we had to do it. I couldn't sleep at night, so basically we went to that cap design. If you look at the nozzle here, another thing I want to tell you about the nozzle is that it's got a rubber bumper on the end of it. If you use this in training, the way we recommend to do it in training, you're usually doing pellets and straw or something like that. Is shut off the inward nozzle, because if you don't, you're going to squash that fire down. You're going to steam it out in seconds. If you do that, you're not going to get the visual effect of what the ventilation does. So in training, we always have a couple lines set up, inside, towards your entry point, and then this goes in the window, directing your flow path out through the fire room. The key is a good 360 on any fire for this particular tool. You always want it to go in as close to the fire as possible, because you want that suppression and that ventilation to work for you. So we do ventilation only in training fires. Once we do ventilation, you're actually going to pull the heat and flame. You'll see the flame inside of a fire pull right out and across that nozzle. That flame will come right up to that fog nozzle, and boom, it will burn that rubber bumper off. The unit itself, aluminum, water flowing through it, you're fine, nothing's going to happen. We've had nozzles that we've had hundreds of fires on. You take it apart, their gaskets inside are fine. They lube them up once every 10 years or so, and you're good to go. So that's basically the tool itself. So we have a glass breaking point up here. We have a sill holder here that just holds it basically on the sill until you charge it. The red piece goes on the bottom piece, and then we have an 1.5 inch shutoff. Really good 1.5 inch shutoff quality product that goes along with it. Next picture is our deployment pack. Deployment pack pouch right in here. Pouch will hold all those nozzles so that you got it with you. You throw this on the front lawn. Now you think about what you've got. You've got ventilation and suppression here, and I know I don't have the fog nozzle on. This was just taken quickly at the firehouse the other day, and I forgot the fog nozzle is actually in there. So you've got ventilation and suppression right here. You've got 100 feet of hose in the pack with you. You've got the bottom piece already pre-connected to the hose. and you've got your piercing nozzle and your slug tip already in the pack. So you've got a great attack line right there with you. If you just spin this piece off, put the slug tip on, you've got a piercing nozzle up here for attic fires, concealed fires, or a regular fire. You do a great 360, find out where that fire is, and then you throw this in the window. Ventilation and suppression. The best part about this is once you throw it in the window, you walk away. So you look at low manpower, you look at basically any department, we're all strapped. The first 5 minutes of any fire, we are just, task-rich, manpower poor. I don't care if you're Chicago, New York, Seattle, Raoul. We all don't have that luxury of showing up with a bunch of guys. So this basically you can leave in that window. You're going to get suppression on the fire and ventilation. If you pull around the back of the house, you have a couple of rooms in the the BC corner on fire on the second floor, and there are 2 bedrooms next to each other. You can actually take this tool, slam it in one window, let it go for about a minute, minute and a half, watch the conditions. You'll actually see the smoke go from black to white, showing that you're getting suppression when it's pulling it out the window. Take it and then slap it into the next window that's on fire. And if you think about what you did, that first room you had it in, you knocked down 70, 80, 90% depending on the fire load in that room. Now if the doors are open, you'll pull it around into the hallway, anything that's left, and you'll pull it out through that other fire room. You're still controlling your flow path out through the one corner. The guys who are coming in, again, communications is key on a fire ground for any fire. You tell them you got that BC corner that's on fire, second floor, and you're throwing it in one room, throwing it in the other room, and then you're making your way around to help do the fire attack. You're still pulling that flow path. You're still giving that negative pressure. You're making that ventilation nozzles your negative point. Any fire is basically lazy. It's going to want to pull all that out. Any negative point is going to want to go. So if you open a window or a door, I'm preaching to the choir here, telling you guys that I've said this 1,000 times, but if I'm telling you stuff you already know, sorry. So basically you're making that flow path out. You put it in place, and then you walk away from it. Once you walk away from it, you think about what it does then. It's knocking down the fire, controlling your flow path. You open that front door. Once you open that front door, that negative pressure's now pulling anything away from you. You're knocking that rollover out of it. You're taking the sting out of the fire. You're dropping that temperature and the fire load by 2 reasons. You're pulling the heat and smoke actually out of the room. So you're pulling the BTUs out of the room just with the ventilation. So you're actually stopping that fire spread from going back in. And then you throw the water, the 95 gallons a minute in that's coating the rest of the room. You're knocking it down significantly. That 95 gallons a minute goes up into the fire initially, takes the rollover out, and then you'll see that it basically acts kind of like a reverse sprinkler head once it cools the room enough where it bounces off the ceiling and coats everything. So here's just a basic strap system we have. We've got the cap installed in here. This is again the older one without the cap. I had it laying around just to show this. We've got 2 straps. If you don't want to get the deployment pack, we've got just a 2-strap system that comes with it. This holds the cap because we don't want it deployed with the cap on. 2 straps that hold it together. Next one we show is basically how the tool works. We had an older version, basically hydraulic ventilation out, and you can see suppression in. This is just very low pressure on it. It actually flows a boatload of water. Okay. Non-ideal H atmosphere I'm standing in. You can see that room on fire. Because I'm in a non-ideal H atmosphere, do I necessarily need to wear my air pack? I was standing here. This is the fire. The smoke's going on over my head. I can't smell any of it. I'm not anywhere near it. The glass itself, I'm standing 7 to 8 feet away from where I'm breaking the glass. And once that fire blows out, you'll see in the next picture here, I'm still basically almost around the corner from where that fire is. So if you're volunteer departments, and I'm running into volunteer departments across the world, we're selling in China, France, Sweden, all over Europe. We're getting calls from South Africa, Australia, and people are seeing what this thing does. You look at low manpower situations, especially the volunteer world around here. The volunteer world, we're seeing a couple of things happen. A lot of volunteer departments don't have a lot of people. The people that they do have, if they've got a 20-man department, they might have 4 or 5 guys on the top that are getting to be 65 plus. They don't want to go into fire anymore. They still want to be active. They can still pump the heck out of a rig, and they can still do their job, but they don't want to go in. And I don't blame them. When I'm 65 plus, I don't want to go in a building either. The other thing that's on the bottom You get out to New York, you've got a 2-year train, 200 hours basically, which is a couple of years to get these guys trained up to be interior firefighters. If you can show them how to do this, basically you can show them how to keep the fire in check and do ventilation. The key, again, is a good 360, good communication. Where else? Let's see. Second floor application off a ladder. We're just showing you some different pictures. Again, second floor application just from the ground. You can see how tall the thing is. It basically, you've got an 8-foot extension plus just to reach up in there. So here's where we get into the meat and potatoes of the video. This is our containers. If you look, we've got a burn room right here. We've got a window cut in here. Here's your HYDROVENT, first floor. You've got a door you can control here, a door you can control here, and then basically, like the rest of the house, living quarters. Our fire load for every burn that we've done, and we've done multiple burns in these containers, and people say, well, we'll use it when we get a container fire. Well, tell me who's going to burn a couch, OSB, and all this stuff in any training fire and let people get anywhere near it. Not many people. So this is our fire, basically our fire load. So you can see it's a pretty good overstuffed couch. Every fire that we did, we let it get ripping. They weren't just little fires. We had temperature sensors inside the cans at 3 feet and 6 feet inside the fire room. We had thermal cameras and regular GoPro cameras set up all around it. We had a thermo and a GoPro set up. If you look at the door view here, this is what we want to see. We want to see what's happening over here. We want to see it pull the heat and smoke out. We want to see what's going on over here. We want to see that color of that smoke go from black to white. That tells us we're getting suppression. But we want to see what's going on over the door view. So that's where we focused the majority of our concern here. So you can see we put it in from the outside. Again, not IDLH atmosphere. I'm standing 7 to 8 feet away from the window when I put it in. Once I put it in, you can see kneel down, charge it. Before you put it in, I always check it. I look at my window size and I brace it against the window, against the base of the building. Once I brace it against the base of the building, what I'm doing is I'm charging it. You think about the stick itself. If you've got the one nozzle going up and in straight streams, that's pushing the tool down into the window. The frog nozzle is pushing it back.
Kevin, hold up for 1 second. Did everyone lose the presentation view? Or just give me a thumbs up if you still have the presentation view. You good? Good. Okay, that may be on your end, Warren. Thank you. Sorry about that, Kevin. It was somebody just pointed out that we lost the presentation, but it looks good. We're good.
Start it down, pull it up, or go again?
No, keep going. Just do what you're doing.
Okay. So basically, I always set it down here along the windowsill. Along the base of the building, along the base, anything, an immovable object is what I set it up against. I look at the size of my vent opening, I put it there, I charge it. If the cap is on, that nozzle reaction, basically with this tool, you've amplified that fog stream by 8 feet, so that thing will whip me around and spin me in the ground like a corkscrew. That's the reason I always brace it against a movable object when I test the fog pattern. I test the fog pattern, I make sure it's your best guess. You start at the widest point, and if it's a smaller window like this one, I crank it about a quarter turn, throw it in the window, and go. If that fog pattern is too wide where it's hitting inside your window, you're doing no good. Basically, your ventilation is nothing. You want that to be just inside the window where you get that fog stream coming out. If it's too wide, shut it down, pull it out, turn it another quarter turn, close, and throw it back in. If it's working great, walk away if that's the only room you got on fire. Once we did do that, you'll see what happens. This is an overview. So you're looking over here to your left, doors are open. That's what we'd be going in against. That's some angry, pissed off smoke. You can actually see flames coming out the door, nothing going on yet. Once we throw it in the window, this is what happens. So we've got a drone view of the whole thing. Look at the amount of push you're getting. You can see I'm still standing there by it. This is only seconds after it's been put in. And look at the angry, pissed off smoke on your left, our attack point. So you can see what we're doing to that flow path. You can see what we're doing to pull it through. So if we go just a couple of seconds farther, and you don't have to believe me on this, when Raul gets a chance to talk, the reason I asked him to be here is we met at FDIC a couple of years ago, and Raul was standing in back listening to me do my spiel there. And he goes, "Hey, Kev, nice to meet you. I'm Raul Angulo, and tells me all about himself. And he goes, "Does your product really do what it says it does?" I go, "Yeah, it does." He goes, "Well, I'll tell you what. If you do some burns, I will fly out there and do it, but I'm not going to write an article just because you're standing here telling me." He goes, "If you prove to me that it does what it does, I'll write on it, and we'll if I like it, I'll write a good article. If I don't, I said, that's all I can ask." So he'll tell you his side of it in a minute. So we go from there, and a couple seconds later, that's probably, I'm guessing just because of the amount of smoke over here, probably about 45 seconds to a minute. You can see the color of the smoke and the volume of the smoke. Color tells you we've got significant, knockdown inside the room, and the volume of the smoke speaks for itself. And then you look at the door view to the left, you've got nearly nothing over there. And you can see all the couches and everything lined up for the rest of the day. We did a lot of burns here. So I was telling you about that door view. Anybody have any questions so far? Are we doing pretty good?
I think we're good. We do have I want to get to Warren's comment. He's got something in the chat room. We'll save it for a minute and get there. Just be conscious of your time, Kevin. You're at about 35 minutes in. Gives us about 20 to 25 minutes left.
Okay. And we'll save probably 10 minutes or so for questions, give or take.
Sure.
All right, here we go. So this is the meat and potatoes of the whole thing. And this we have live video online. You can take a look at hydrovent.us or, on YouTube. There's a bunch of videos out there. So again, we had this view here. We have thermocouples inside the room, same burn. And at the door we have we have a tick camera and a regular camera. We have everything in these next videos. These are stills from the videos. Basically show you what's going on. So you look up here, upper left, that's your window. These two views, the door view tick and the door view GoPro are the same. They're looking straight through, and if you look at the tick, you can actually see the couch burning inside there. Straight through that fire is where the window's at. If you look at the temperatures, those are live readings. That's 1,296 degrees at 6 feet from the floor, 881 at 3 feet from the floor inside the fire room. Now that's probably a 7-foot, close to 8-foot container, so you're getting close to 1,500 degrees or better inside that room. Chances of survival inside the room are slim to none. The reason we have the thermal camera in here, and the reason that's our most important view, is look at that rollover coming out in that angry, pissed off smoke. You can't see it yet. It hasn't breached the door yet. It's probably starting to go down that other container, but man, it's coming out there and it is hot. So once that timer, there's a timer that comes in right above where it says door view GoPro. Once that timer goes on, that's when water starts flowing. So if we start working our way down, you're at 1,303 degrees. You can just see me up in the upper left, just about to put it in. Next one, 0.7 seconds. It's just going in the water, and water's just starting to flow. You can see that upper left. You can just see that starting to flow. 4 seconds. We started out over 1,300 degrees. Take a look at your tick camera. Now take a look at your door view GoPro. You had some angry shit coming out that door, and you had some rollover just about to flash or go, right over your head. 4 seconds ago. That tells you what the hit it hard from the yard, the coordinated attack, the ventilation with suppression, everything that NIST and UL have been preaching. In my mind, it tells me that it's working. Look at your temperature in 4 seconds, from over 1,300 degrees to 1,282, and going down at going down from there. So we'll keep going. 20 seconds. Now that fire is still going in that room. That sprinkler head is going off. It's hitting off the ceiling now that rollover's gone. And now it's raining down inside the room. It's not going to get underneath that couch. It's not going to get underneath the bed. It's not going to get behind the wood. You take that out of the window, that thing's going to start up again in just a minute or two. You look at the amount of smoke it's pulling out the other way, and then you look over in the door view GoPro and see what it's done for you. It's going to take me, if we've got a 2 or 3 man crew, the engineer is going to charge, get his water supply and charge the line. I'm going to throw that in the window. I'm going to come around, and if my engineer and my LT are standing here ready to go, it's going to take me 20 to 30 seconds to make myself around, get my pack on, ready to go. I tap them on the shoulder in just 30 seconds. Look what we've done. Now this is a small room and contents fire, but we've had this in hundreds of fires, and it's done the same thing every time. The key again is good communications, good, just good communications where you want it, a good 360, putting this in the right place. So 30 seconds down to 845 from over 1300 degrees, and look at the temperatures in there. Basically, look at your, how much smoke you have coming out this way and how much smoke you have coming out the other way. 1 minute. Notice the name on the jacket there. That's to prove he was there. So 1 minute, we're down to 647. So with and without HYDROVENT. And then we go quickly into another fire. This fire itself, if you look on the left, back up in here is the window for HYDROVENT. We've got a full-size couch, tables, chairs. This is basically a room and contents fire. And to the left, we had 8 pallets burning together. This is the fire that we had going before we put it in. If you watch this video online, you can just see the outline right here of HYDROVENT just going in the window. You can see the circle portion of it there, and you can see the amount of heat and everything coming out into the kitchen here. Once you put it in, if you look at the white, that white is that inward suppression. That's the first second of that inward suppression. You can just see it coming out. We go to the next view. A little bit more. A little bit more. A little bit more. And then basically within seconds that fires out, and then it starts sucking the heat and smoke out. Outside view, this is at a house burn up in Crivitz, Wisconsin. They just wanted to see, this is within 30 seconds, there's probably 8 to 10 pallets in there. You can see the house is burning down at this point. They said throw it in there, let's see what it does. We went room to room to room and knocked down the majority of the fire. Within 30 seconds, that's what you got. Wind-driven application. At the B corner here, at the AB corner, we had winds of 12 to 15 miles an hour blowing at this window. Once we put it in, this is ventilation only. They wanted to burn the house down. They wouldn't let me do any suppression at this fire. They just wanted to see what it would do to ventilation only, and wanted to see what it would do against a wind-driven fire. So you look at that, and then watch what it does to your flame. This is within a second after I took it out of the window. That tells you what the wind conditions were. Same fire, look at your exposure protection that the tool does. You can just see in the center here, this is again ventilation only, so there's no suppression going on. You can see the cone of the HYDROVENT. Look at your tick, your plus right there as you're reading your temperature. 1300 plus degrees right there. Pull it out a couple of feet, look what it does for your exposure protection. Your 250 degrees right there. This is what it looks like inside. When I told you it would actually pull flame and stuff around the corner, you can see the HYDROVENT a room away. It's actually pulling. This is a pellet and straw. This is basically a straw fire down in Texas that we did. This is that basically bracing it when I told you about checking your nozzle. So if I get back on here, if I can figure it out, there we are, and I stop that. Here I am.
You're back.
So that's our whole spiel. Other than getting out and burning with you guys and showing you what it does and how it works, get you into a fire with it. That's what it does and how it works.
Sure. Why don't we hold there for a second? We got a couple of questions. Viewers, if you have any questions, please feel free. I'm going to go to Greg first, and then Warren, and then probably Raul. You probably wrap it up for us. So, Greg, your question had to do with positive pressure attack. Is that right?
Yeah, I wondered if you did any side-by-side comparisons and looked at temperature changes inside versus PPA.
We've done some comparisons. The more the comparisons that we did with temperature drop were, it's hard to get a true view. Yes, they both work and they both drop it. If you use HYDROVENT in a window, just ventilation only, you're going to pull that heat and smoke out, and you're going to drop temperatures, and you're basically sucking dry air across a fire. So yeah, you're going to make the fire bigger. Positive pressure is going to do the same thing. I don't have a number. Yes, they both drop temperature significantly. I don't have that number. What we have been doing, and I believe in positive pressure. I think that It takes a lot of training. It takes really, really good coordination. And when it goes wrong, it can go catastrophically wrong. We've all seen that. The UL NIST studies, I went to those. I was there at quite a few of those, and I watched what they were doing. And the studies are coming out, and they're basically going to say that it takes a lot of training. Basically, you have to do it right, do it correctly, and get it to, have your ventilation opening, your cone your door, watch your smoke coming back out the door. If it burps out on you, too much pressure, you don't have a big ventilation opening, all that stuff. Basically, good communication, good coordination, good flow path through your structure, good ventilation for positive pressure. Ours will work if that door is closed in the fire room itself. So basically, picture that door is closed in the room. Basically, you're throwing water in. You've got a cone in the room, and around the cone, you've got 4 open corners. So basically, it will actually suck air back in when it steams that room. That steam will be 700 times expansion, and it will suck that steam out and still knock down that room even with the door closed. Positive pressure won't do that.
Okay, hold that for a minute, because you made a good segue into Warren's comment. Warren, you want to talk about the door, the opening, and the use of a portable door. Why don't you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, Kevin, I would like to see if you have any data on how it works with the door closed versus having the open flow path. I'm willing to bet that with the door closed works very well, and then you're not feeding more outside air into the fire. You're basically going to recycle some of the stuff outside the window in and still get rid of all your bad stuff. Conversely, using the portable door at the opening for attack does the same thing, but does let a little air in the bottom, so you're limiting the amount of air going in. And one other question real quick, have you done any testing with the fog nozzle for your sealing nozzle versus the 4 little straight streams?
Kevin, you're muted, sorry.
There we go.
Yep.
How about now?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
I was clearing my throat there. I didn't want to interrupt you. Sorry about that. So the doors itself, yes, it works very well with the door or without the door. It does. If you look inside the room, the conditions almost look the same. You're going to have that steam circling inside the room with the door closed more. Once you open the door, you actually create that flow path, and you pull everything out, and you can see everything lift very quickly. With the door closed, you're going to knock down that fire, and you're going to steam that whole room, and it's just going to circle inside the room. Portable doors are doing basically the same thing. The fires that we had, I couldn't get a portable door close enough to them to test one. I mean, they were some pretty ripping fires. So, and all the fires that we've done have been pretty large. The fog nozzle, to address the fog nozzle inside versus the straight streams, I'm not a scientist. I'm doing this by hundreds of different variations. So I weld on a nozzle. I try this. I try that. I try the other. To get them all to play together, this is what we came up with. If you put a fog nozzle facing back in, and if you lower it down, you think about where this is set, you could go right into the back of a couch, plus you're pushing the tool out of the window. If you don't have it up on an angle, if you have a fog nozzle up on an angle, you're fighting, yes, you'll get suppression and you get better spread in the room probably, but you're fighting the CFM going out. You want that CFM to go out. So the straight streams up in 4 different directions go off, hit off the ceiling, and once they hit that ceiling, they break up and they spread pretty good, and then it comes down like a reverse sprinkler head. Did I answer your questions there, Warren?
You did. I mean, I can see the force issues you would have. It's just I'm still an advocate of the smaller drop of water you can have, the better. But
I agree. We're trying to get a tool out there that will. We try to keep it under that 200 GPM mark total, and we're trying to get a tool out there for the world to use. So
yeah, no, I think the setup it's effective. I was just wondering if I can see because of the forces it'd be harder to use the fog, so it's not that big a deal. I mean, it looks like it works pretty well. Joe's not here, but it'd be kind of cool to have you come to the next Kill the Flashover.
I've actually been talking with Joe for about 6 months now, and we're trying to get a date together where we can come down and test it.
Good.
I understand you guys do some really good stuff. So.
And we use big fires.
That's what I heard.
Sometimes 5 in a day, Warren.
That's right. We think Joe gets a little ambitious at how many burns he wants to do in a day occasionally, because he wanted to do 8 or 9 that day.
Yeah, exactly. Raul, let's hear from you. We got a few minutes before we take other questions from viewers of the panel. Raul, so you met him, you heard his pitch, you've been to a couple of incidents. Give us your perspective, if you would.
I'll be quick because I'd like to give Adam a chance to speak. So I wrote this article for Fire Apparatus Magazine. And I do a lot of tool review, but I'm also a firefighter. I've been in the fire service 37 years, so I get it. And I was intrigued with this whole concept, everything that you saw. And so I went to the test fires in Chicago and in Texas, and it performed just like Kevin said. So here's what I see. I wanted to correct something that he said as far as the piercing nozzle. You can call it a round nozzle. It's going to give this round pattern. What you're doing is you're introducing a sprinkler system into that confined space. So, you don't necessarily have to pound, a nozzle to call it a piercing nozzle, round nozzle. But they do the same thing. I wanted to talk about controlling the door for Warren, and what I saw was in these tests, all the doors were closed. The difference between positive pressure attack and positive pressure ventilation, which we use in Seattle, more positive pressure ventilation, only because we don't have the fans on the engines. We can do positive pressure attack if the trucks get there quick enough, so we're not against that. But that is going to increase the intensity of the fire, until you direct that flow path. But what I saw is you're not just introducing a sprinkler system with HYDROVENT, because the GPM is much more than a sprinkler system. As soon as that nozzle is placed into the container that's on fire, room fire or whatever, simultaneously you're doing an offensive attack and you're hydraulically ventilating. So the fire never gets a chance to get bigger. I never saw any of the fires get bigger. They always got immediately smaller, and the temperatures dropped. Now, as far as the portable door, and again, I don't work for Kevin at all. I'm not associated with HYDROVENT, but because I wrote 2 articles on it, the other one I wrote was for the International Firefighter, and I've been getting a lot of response on that. I've had to really understand all the concepts of HYDROVENT just to defend the article as the author. But in the Chicago tests, after we opened the doors, there was enough of a negative pressure created in the fire room that it was drawing all the smoke from the hallway. It cleared a 40-foot hallway as if we had a positive pressure fan pushing that air in there. It did it without it. It reversed the process. And right at the door of the fire room was your portable door, Warren. There was enough of a negative pressure created by the ventilation that it entrained all the air from the hallway, and there was no heat, there was no smoke. We were standing in there without SCBA because the hallway was totally clear. It was pretty amazing, and so I'm a fan of this tool just as a firefighter, because I think it's going to revolutionize how we do fire attack in the future if we're willing to accept it. A lot of the criticism that I get is, well, we still like our firefighters to go in and yada yada, and I get all that bravado stuff, but again, I'm older, I'm at the end of my career, and it's not the fire. You still have to go in and finish the fire off. The fire isn't the hazard, it's the building. The building is being attacked, and so the enemy is more the building that's on fire than it is the actual flames. And then not to mention all the carcinogens that we're exposed to during fire attacks. So it's a very smart way. And I think that if more people see this, it's really going to revolutionize how we attack fire in the American Fire Service. The other thing I wanted to mention, let's see, I think that was it. Yeah, that was it. As far as positive pressure, immediately it reverses the process. It takes all the energy out of the fire, and these fires never got bigger. Ours, even in Seattle, if we put a fan in, or if you're going to create that flow path, the fire is going to get bigger. So I'd like to hear what Adam has to say. That's about all I have to contribute.
Well, thank you, Raul. I appreciate that. Adam, from a small department, limited manpower, and Greg, actually, I'd like to hear from both of you. Adam, any purpose? Do you see the point of this? I don't know. What are you thinking from your type of organization?
Oh, definitely. I think it was probably Kevin talking. We got a 16-man roster here. Maybe out of that roster, we're gonna get maybe 6. So having something like that in our department would be awesome. It really would, because of limited manpower. Yeah, we got mutual aid. The closest town is 8 miles away, but if we can get early suppression, that's going to help out dramatically on our end. At least get a good knockdown on it. Question is when you're taking out windows, we're taught to take out the whole window. Will that take out the whole thing, the glass, the sash, or do you got to actually? Because like in my window, I got newer windows. They're not the old wood frame. Will that take that whole thing out, or can you just, how's that take out those windows?
So the question is, Kevin, on a newer window, the double, triple pane, that kind of thing. What are you thinking?
I always recommend you bring a hook for all the honeydew stuff that's hanging inside the windows. You got blinds, you got room darkening shades, you got valances, you got all that stuff hanging in there. This will, yes, crack through the window and do a good job at it. The part that you bring the hook for is if you're in there trying to hook that stuff and pull it out, if you roll this nozzle open or close when you're doing that, you can actually get it to a straight stream without even trying. So I always recommend to bring a hook with too. Hope that answered your question.
And I got one more question if I can, and then I'll
sure.
be quiet here.
Go ahead.
It's got a 40-inch tube, correct? If your windowsill is lower to the ground, do you put that sideways and brace it up instead of facing straight up and down? Will it do the same concept if it's off to the side? Because like the house we were training in, the windows are actually lower to the ground, and that pipe would actually be dug into the ground.
Kevin, you want to address that?
So yeah, if this is your window and you're a first floor window, it would go in almost on a 45-degree angle like this. So you're kicking that nozzle up. You're doing 2 things. You're kicking that fog nozzle up on a little bit of an angle. So if it's a real low window to the ground, you might be kicked down a little bit. But if it's almost a regular size window, it's going to be up on almost a 45 into that window. The other thing you're going to do, if you think about it though, when you put it in a first floor application, because of the way this is designed, it might spray the majority of water back into one half of the room, so you're bouncing it off and raining it down that way instead of a second floor application where you're spraying it directly.
And with your kit, does the silver deal come with it too? What we call piercing, maybe? Does that come with your kit? Yeah, or is that an extra deal?
Right now we're in the infancy of selling, and I'm dealing with a bunch of different companies. My thought is, and you guys can tell me too, because I'm not a salesman. I'm a fireman. I done construction on the side for 25 years ago. This is my first foray into this world. So my thought was, I put the 2 pieces together. I have a system, whether it's a strap system or the hose deployment system. If it's just a 2-strap system, I have these 3 in a pouch. Because if you don't have these 3 with the tool, you just defeated the purpose of all that flexibility I gave you. So I'm giving you all that flexibility with these 3 in a pouch on the tool or in a pouch on the deployment pack. So my goal is, and we're right in the infancy, it definitely comes with this to shut off the 2 pipes, is to get these in the kit also, or maybe have that one base kit and then these 2 another one. So.
Because that here would work really good on hay bale fires. My daughter, she's my co-pilot. She's our junior, and she even said, "Hey, Dad, that piercing would work great on hay bales here."
It works good on hay bales and barns. You get into the center of a hay bale, though, it's like concrete. I mean, okay. I don't know. That's a pretty decent size.
Yeah.
It's 2.5 inch round. So I don't know if you're going to drive it in there, but the outside, that 4 to 6, 8 inch, 10 inch around the outside, I think you can get it in there.
Okay.
I'd like to add, it's a tool. It's not going to replace the interior fire attack. It's great for fires that are self-venting already. There's fire blowing out the window. And I've had firefighters say, well, we can do this with the hose lines. that's assuming that you can still make entry through the front door. You still got to deal with forcible entry issues, stairwells, furniture, trying to find your way in the house. I mean, if the fire has already created the exit point, then that's it right there. This is going to be faster at extinguishing than any fire crew laying hose lines in there. You still have to go in, but why not go into a less dangerous fire? And drop the temperature for the people inside. You're not going to drop temperatures faster than this tool with the way we attack fires conventionally.
Right. Well, gentlemen, I think we've got to leave it there. Greg, sorry we shorted you out there, Greg, but we're gonna hang around a couple minutes after the broadcast. What we could not show you video tonight because of a restriction with YouTube, folks. But quickly, Kevin, we're just about to pull the plug. Where can we get the videos? Where people saw this episode, they want more information, they want to see live video, which again is a YouTube restriction. We could not show you live video tonight. Kevin, where do they get information?
So if we go right back up to the front here,
there we go.
www.hydrovent.us. We have our webpage up and a YouTube page. It's under HYDROVENT. The best video by far we have is the can burns, because we could get the biggest fires and we could get the most cameras data out of those over and over again. That's I think that's HYDROVENT. If I look, it's probably HYDROVENT number 1 or number 2. It's about 4 minutes and change long. The first minute and a half is the overview from the drone, and then it goes into that 4 view, and it's all live action. So,
okay. Thank you for that. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, members of the panel, and certainly thanks to our viewers. We will be back next week at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We don't have a topic on deck. If you have a topic that you'd like, send me an email. We'd be happy to talk about it. And if you do know somebody that wants to be on the show or on the panel, please feel free to give me an email or get in touch with me. We'd be happy to do that. We'll see you next week.